Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. In this video, I want to talk about how most people hate their lives but refuse to do anything about it, right? You ever notice that? Like, I remember when, I was working crappy jobs. I always thought all the time, like, what can I do to get out of this and make sure that I'm never in this position again, right? I always thought that all the time, and I really wanted other people to like mastermind with, but I noticed that whenever I worked a crappy job and tried to, let's say, have a conversation with, let's say, a coworker or just people I know in general about like how can we improve this or how can we make this better for us, most people would just have these blank stares or act like they didn't listen to you or they just go on with their lives, and I'm thinking like, am I the only one who hates my life and wants to do something about it? But the unfortunate fact is that most people are stuck in the matrix and they know that the matrix sucks, but for whatever reason, their brain doesn't allow to think, like, hey, I can escape it, right? I don't have an actual explanation as to why people don't have no desire to escape, even though they know it sucks, but most people don't. And it really reminds me of this article that I read, why gymnasts secretly hate gymnastics but refuse to quit. And I don't know about you if you ever played sports before, but I played sports in high school. I did wrestling. Like, I was in varsity one year and then I quit. And man, I hated sports, right? Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched that episode of South Park where the kids, like, they're on a baseball team and they realize that if they actually keep winning games, then they have to keep playing baseball. So they're on this mission to lose on purpose. That's how I was in like varsity wrestling. Like, I just didn't want to go to tournaments, and to be honest, I wanted to stay home and play video games on the weekends rather than go to wrestling tournaments. And to be fair, I kind of sucked too, even though I was varsity. But um, you know, my mind when I was a wrestler was just like, man, a lot of these processes and procedures that we have for training our athletes kind of suck. They're kind of outdated. They almost feel like they're 50, more than 50 years old. And then when you like look up the history of the sport, you realize a lot of the training procedures and processes are more than 50 years old. It's really gross, right? Like, think about things that I could just list things on the top of my head of how to make the sport better. Like, what about a focus on nutrition, right? There, in most sports, unless maybe like you're a top level athlete who hires like personal um, nutrition coaches or whatever you call them, um, most people don't even think about nutrition, right? So there's a lot of athletes out there who just don't think about like the fuel that they put in their body. And I think like Tom Brady is one of the very few athletes who focuses on like diet, which is probably why he's had a very long-lasting career compared to other athletes. I mean, if you look at other athletes in the NFL, I think the average career lifespan is only like 2 years, and then they get kicked out or they drop out and then they're broke once they leave, even though they make millions of dollars during their little stint. But again, it's kind of like this article, right? Why gymnasts secretly hate gymnastics but refuse to quit. I kind of was like that too. I mean, we know that what the problem is, right? But I actually did quit because I hated the sport. But a lot of people are like people in this article, and it says why gymnasts secretly hate gymnastics but refuse to quit. And then it's funny because again, isn't this like the thought process of the Matrix? Like, nobody likes the Matrix. This young lady saying no young gymnast really likes gymnastics. The viewer who can't see past the done up hair, sequins, I don't know if that's how you say it, and muscle tone probably enjoys watching it, but no no gymnast truly likes doing it. And there are three main reasons why we pretend to love what we so despise. And then, Jim, I'm not going to go ahead and read the entire article, but I'll just kind of skip through it or go through it really rapidly. Jim family, frenemies, blah, 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 blah. And then the next one is like impossible perfection. So, blah, 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 blah. And then why we don't feel safe. Parents judge little kids and later insecure teens as not safe. Blah, 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 blah. Physical harm. So, there's a lot of reasons why gymnasts hate gymnastics, but they just refuse to quit, right? And it's unfortunate that so much of our society is like this. It's not like gymnasts are like this. I mean, I know wrestlers who are like this too. It's like, why are we doing wrestling, right? Like, what's up with the training, absurd training practices of the sport that make absolutely no sense, that isn't in our best interest, and is not even about making us the best athlete that we can be, right? It's almost like the story of Grandma's ham. I don't know if you ever heard the story of Grandma's ham, but there's a story about how, like, um, some lady cuts the ham, like pieces of the ham, like maybe on like the skins or something, like before she puts it in the oven. And then she asks her mom, like, she learned it from her mom, right? And she asked her mom, like, why do we do this, right? And her mom says, I don't know, I learned it from grandma, right? I think it's maybe to make the ham juicier. And then so she asked grandma, like, hey, why do we actually cut the pieces of the ham before we put it in the oven, right? And then she's like, I don't know. That's what your great grandma did, right? And great grandma's still alive. And then they go ahead and ask great grandma, like, hey, like, why do we go ahead and cut the pieces of skin before we put it in the oven? And then great grandma says, is like, a long time ago, the ovens back then weren't that big. So I had to cut it out before I put the ham in the oven. And that's how a lot of things are like these days. Even like most businesses are run through outdated practices and procedures. And that's why, we're not, whatever it is that we're doing, our management practices for business, sports, life in general, we're clinging to outdated practices in a world that's changing so rapidly. And because our bodies and our minds know that something's wrong, but at the same time, because we're conformist creatures, we refuse to let go of things that don't work anymore, right? And that's how a lot of things are nowadays, where, a lot of things don't work. Like, you go to the average business, right? There's probably high turnover, nobody really cares, and there's poor leadership, right? And the leadership, instead of actually seeing that the people that they work with is actual human beings, just see a spreadsheet and think, oh, well, this is what I learned in business school, and so I'm going to do this. And then, their employees hate it because, they're not being listened to like real human beings, but because they can't just magically quit their job because they need a paycheck, they just sit and suffer, but at the same time, they don't allow themselves to think, hey, we can do better than this, right? And that's what you and I both have to do. If our situation sucks, we have to allow ourselves, hey, what can we do to make this better? And there are tons of things in life in general that need to be modernized. Like, we need to update how things are done so that we can have, maybe more productive employees, or better sports teams, or better students and learners, right? Because, you look at your basic, even school, right? The practices of a modern school come from the Industrial Revolution. Now, I'm not going to talk about like the origins of the school system, but if you want to just do a quick Google search, look up John Taylor Gatto, and he talks about like how the school system was originated as a way to kind of dumb down kids so that you prepare them for the factories. Now, do we have factories anymore? No, we don't. But, the way that we regiment the learning is essentially just preparing kids for something that doesn't exist anymore, right? And it's also kind of morphed into some sort of beast that can't be stopped. Like, you ever see how so many students nowadays have like 10, they're doing 20 things at once, and like all these AP classes, extracurricular activities. And then we wonder why, like, when they get to the workforce, so many of them suck at what they do, right? You ever notice a lot of people suck at what they do? It's unfortunate, that's just the way it is. But again, it comes from the mentality that even though we hate where we're at, we refuse to do anything about it, just like gymnastics, right? Nobody likes gymnastics. Nobody likes working their job, but we refuse to quit. It's unfortunate, right? All right, so it's just a quick discussion about, the state of modern society. And if you're interested in joining our group, one of the things that we talk about or learn is not only velocity banking, but we also talk about or learn about financial literacy and real estate investing education. So if you're interested in learning and growing together with us, go ahead and click the Google form link below, and we'll get on one-on-one Zoom call. Other than that, have a great day, and we'll speak next time.